Hello friends and welcome to the Noclip podcast, episode 88. That's like a double infinity sign, isn't it? Infinity. Double as well for the amount of infinitely long earthquakes we've been experiencing here in the North Bay. Jeremy, what the fuck?
So the scariest part about the earthquake and aftershock last night was the USGS alert to my phone.
I was sleeping.
Oh my god!
It
literally
scared the shit out of me.
It said take cover, and like I've felt some pretty strong earthquakes in my day, but nothing has scared me more than a message from the government that said take cover.
I wasn't sure what was going on. I had a nap, so you know when you have it's like the worst thing to wake from because you've not really had a proper REM cycle, and it's not nighttime, and it just feels weird, and you kind of wake up groggy. And I woke up, and it was just like. And the thing, and I didn't know why it was saying it, so I was like, I think at the top it said earthquake, but I was like, is there a bomb coming? I don't know what's happening. And I walked out to the house, and my kid and my wife are there, and I didn't even like run under an anything. I was just so groggy, and I was like, you guys feel that? And it was apparently it was two of them back to back.
Oh, I thought it was an aftershock. Those were two separate earthquakes.
There were two earthquakes that happened at so they happened. The first earthquake felt like it was really long. It felt like it was like a minute long. Yeah. I kept feeling it. There was two back to back, and we just had another one about 20 minutes ago that it was in Sonoma. It's a pretty small one though.
Oh Jesus, yeah, it was a 4.4, and my house was about 10-15 miles from the epicenter.
Oh,
so
nice.
It was pretty hefty.
Shocky, yeah. I was really beside a 4.2, I think, when I lived in Oakland, and I was surprised how messed up it was for that small. But anyway, last week it was power outages due to fire. This week the podcast may go down because of earthquakes. How are you in SoCal, Frank Howley? How's the shakies down there?
Everything is fine. The heat wave, I feel like, finally ended Saturday. Like, it was, insanely hot nonstop, and then it rained, and then the heat went away. And it was
beautiful.
It was a full day of almost like hurricane weather. It was windy and raining, and it was so weird. But now the skies have been clear, and everything's been really good.
Great. Planet Earth loves us here in America. What about you, Jesse? How's Canada faring with the with weather, with Mother Earth?
Yeah, it's finally cooled down. It's sticking around 20 degrees. It's beautiful up here. No earthquakes, no tornadoes, no Republican federal government. Well, I guess you guys have a Democratic one, but we wouldn't call it that. It's great up here. No problems that I can list.
Wait, do you use centigrade or Celsius up there?
Why do you keep? You said this on the last pod. Centigrade. It's Celsius. Isn't that in Ireland? Isn't it Celsius over there too?
It is. I don't know why I say centigrade.
Yeah,
centigrade is like sort of like a
it sounds sciencey.
It's like using the 3F system, the firkins, furlongs, and fortnights.
How old are you?
I know. I sound exactly. I'm like 36 and a half, but I sound like I'm from like some eldritch.
Yeah. Danny is a time traveler. This is a good time to reveal that.
Exactly. Yeah. My goodness. How was your week off? You work yourself to death over the summer, dude. Was it nice to step away for a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I needed that week reset of not doing anything. Like, when I took my last vacation for a week, we went on vacation in London, Ontario, which is not a vacation spot.
Did you go play some Warframe?
Yeah, played a little Warframe, checked out Soulframe. It was good. No. Just I hung out with a bunch of. It's actually a very sad city to be in. We were there post, like at the end of summer. So like there wasn't any, in the middle of summer rather. So school was out. So there weren't any students there. There's a ton of like unhoused people just like sitting on the streets begging for people. Were fighting. We got bubble tea one night. And we come outside and we're like walking away. We're at the corner of the street. And there's this woman who's just screaming. And I'm from Hamilton, Ontario. So I'm used to people screaming while you're doing anything downtown. It's normal. Okay. But this woman's yelling at this man. And then he just punches her right in the mouth. And we're like, what is going on? Like,
you're on vacation during this as well.
Yeah. This is the last night that we were there. Like, thank goodness we're going home tomorrow. But the vacation I've had now was mostly just relaxing. I went to Fan Expo. I went to I went to see Bill Burr on Wednesday. He was
wow.
surprisingly not as crappy as he can be sometimes in terms of like
My
things that he
hometown
does.
boy, my Boston
Yeah.
boy.
No cancel culture though, which was nice. Thank you, Bill. So yeah, I just chilled. I just took a week and just played video games. I just sat down. I cleaned. It was great. Oh, beautiful reset time. I loved it.
Bill Burr's solo podcast is one of my favorites for like a long drive.
It's so perfect.
He's so sharp, and
Yes.
he does exist in this sort of like some liberals think he's too one way, and some like a lot of conservatives think he's like been broken by Hollywood or something. He lives in this like fugue state, which I kind of dig it. Like I like that he's just like doing his own thing.
He's so good at making everyone upset.
and he's good in The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, he's great. That Breaking
yeah.
Bad, he's great in that. He's got this new movie
Yeah.
coming out, Old Dads, I think it's called.
He's all right. His like turn in The Mandalorian is like one of the most powerful scenes in that whole thing. It's super good. He just fucking ices a bunch of guys.
Turns to the
Just
Mandalorian. Ladies,
I'm gonna shoot these. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, we got a full crew here this week, and we want to thank everyone for listening in, including our incredible Battle Pass holders: Cody Krieger, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fagan. Hey, Andy. Oh, welcome. Hi. Cameron Ladd. I was going to say that normally there.
Come on.
Cameron Ladd.
George Sakotis,
noise
Jacob Godserve, and Tohir Tiliev. Did the Discord let me? Sometimes Discord like it mutes words that are silly.
It didn't let you yell. It didn't do it.
It didn't let me
you
yell.
yell.
Yeah, for
You know what?
listeners
It's on
of
your
the
end.
podcast, Danny leaned back and shouted Cameron Ladd from the bottom of his heart.
I call it a Tezonde.
Oh yeah.
Give him the chocolate
Yeah,
rain
you're not
treatment.
moving away to
Exactly,
breathe.
yeah.
You're moving away to yell.
Did you ever see that Doom mod for the Tezonde?
What?
Like Ghetto Blaster? Yeah. Yeah, there's a Doom
That was
mod. Of
a
course
hell
there's
of a
Doom
bunch of
mod.
words that all are words.
You know, there's if we're going, that might be the podcast. I'll Tezonde
Tezonde.
Ghetto Blaster, but we were there was a mod for Doom that was basically a just instead of a gun, you had a big like Ghetto Blaster on your shoulder, and if you pressed it, it played. I think if you left clicked, it played Chocolate Rain, and they just like melted. And I think the other one might have been like the Rick Roll song or whatever. Rick Astley song was the other one. So, there you go.
Wow.
So I kill some demons. Thank you so much to our Battle Pass holders, and thank you to all of our patrons. I'm going to go off script for a hot second and say big moments here in Noclip. We have a studio here in the North Bay now. I'm getting the keys tomorrow or yesterday by the time you hear this. So it's a big moment for us. We're back to the world of rent and corporate internet and all those things. So if you have ever considered supporting us, this would be a good time. We're really committing to everything we've been doing so far. You know, we're making a lot more, and Noclip crew, and we have the studio, and we're going to be utilizing getting people in, and also just using it to shoot our own crew stuff and all that stuff. And there's going to be a big sort of push next month to highlight all the work we're doing. Try and get some more patrons in the door because we haven't done that in a hot minute. And but yeah, I just want to say, if you're listening to the podcast and you like the work we do and you want to support it and support all the crew, then please head over to patreon.com/noclip. We'll be packaging up or refreshing some of those tiers and adding in just kind of highlighting all the goodies you can get in there, because by now there's a lot of goodies. And then there's a couple of other bits of housekeeping to talk about, I guess. There's kind of loads going on at the moment in terms of the channel and stuff. Frank's PAX video went up this morning.
Yeah.
Nice work, Frank. Yeah, you edited that in a hot minute as well. Jeez Louise, you had that done in like 2 days.
Well, like I was in the perfect flow state, like going to PAX,
Right.
like doing, like, it's like legitimately, I love going to conventions, but then coming home, like I had so much fun footage to sift through, and then like I use jet set radio music in it. I've been listening to a lot of Beastie Boys and like hip hop, and I kind of really utilize like sample culture in the video of like I really mix stuff up, and I had so much fun editing it. And I haven't really tackled a personal project like that in like years. Like I made like a few random stuff from COVID, but I didn't really shoot anything meaty.
Right.
Like not really since like TwitchCon 2019. So it was like I'm like Rambo going back in the forest. Bad example, but really it's like, oh my God, I'm in my element. And I had so much fun editing. Like that was the best game I played all week.
Excellent.
And again, like I was happy to share it internally, because normally when I make stuff, I never get notes, but I submitted it, and then Danny gave a few like notes, and I was like, oh, like I was saying this to my students because now I'm in the process with my class where I'm giving notes on the students, and I'm like, yeah, change this. But now I was on the other side. I was like, oh man, like I totally forget what that's like to finish a project, get notes after you burned out on editing, but then taking a day off to tackle it. And then once I added the notes, I was like, oh, this is way better. And then even when I watched the final version like a few nights ago, I was like, oh, I could still adjust stuff, but no, it's done.
Exactly.
But I'm really, really proud of the video. It's on the Noclip Crew channel. Yeah, it's very like personal for like a con video. Yeah. Because it's like, it was fun to like reunite. I mean, like I see Mega 64 a lot in Southern California. I used to work there, so I see them all the time. So I have a very deep rapport with them. So I like that I was able to bring that side of it to this video because it's so like, literally Noclip. It's so right there. It's really fun and special. And I hope it opens the doors to more convention videos or even more weirder like media appointments at PAX.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
It was cool. Yeah, it was just like Jayne did, where I think people, like the whole point of that channel is to put us in front of the lens to like swap sides. So, it was awesome. Great job, dude.
Yeah. Also, Frank, like I heard a story recently that made me feel better about the fact that I always want to change stuff on projects up until the last minute and after it's published. I was watching one of the, the Criterion Closet YouTube channel where they like go in the Criterion Closet and pull out a bunch of movies. Someone, I can't remember who, but someone told a story about meeting Antonioni, the famous Italian director, and they were screening one of his movies. And they were like, oh, this must be, he was like sitting alone. And they went up to him and were like, this must be like a big night for you. And he was like, no, I can't stand watching this movie. There's 14 frames in it that I hate.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought that was so funny that like one of like the godfathers of Italian cinema was just like, I can't stand part of this movie. It's like a classic.
Dude, that was like do you remember when we did the GDC Film Festival and we showed the Horizon Zero Dawn documentary?
Oh yeah.
That was
it's
like
painful.
It was one of the most painful things I've ever done because it was like,
and it's good too. It's just painful.
But it's like also like how many people turn up, how many people leave, when do they leave? All the editing things that you wish you'd done, the pacing, and it's like I don't know if this is paced well because I've watched it 8 times. So and it's gonna happen. Oh god, it was so excruciating, but it was kind of like a good thing to do. It was like a rite of passage or something. But yeah, I'm totally with you.
Yeah, it like desanctifies the creative process. Like I think that's so important when you have to make, because like part of being creative is just like making a ton of shit and not being attached to all of it being perfect, because then you'll just work your entire life on one project.
Yeah.
And so I feel like being forced to go into a room with 100 people and just like watch something that's imperfect that you worked on for so long is like, yeah, all right, well, nothing will ever be perfect, so I might as well just do my best.
It's like masochistic or something, the whole thing. But yeah, you learn a lot from it. We have a bunch of videos dropping this week, actually. We've sort of got something fun happening every day over here at the moment. On Monday, we put up the trailer just sort of announcing our 6th birthday. It was our 6th birthday on the September 12th, so that was cool. Sort of talked about what it was like during COVID, how difficult it's been, sort of different vibe and angle we took over COVID and what the plans are for the next, few years or whatever it is. And then on Tuesday, we put out the trailer, a very lo-fi trailer, I'll be honest, but a sort of a taster of what's to come for our Crystal Dynamics documentary, which is the first sort of like big in-person studio doc that we have done in a long, long time, and kind of only really possible because it's like fairly local. So we didn't have to like do any big crazy traveling or staying remote or any of that sort of stuff. We filmed there over the course of, was it 3 days, Jeremy?
Yeah, 3 days.
I think. We interviewed a bunch of people, nearly a dozen folks there. There have been remote interviews since. I am interviewing loads of them. I just got a message. I was told the guys, I won't say who, but I just got another message from somebody who I've been dying to interview as part of this for the whole time. We just said yes.
Cool.
So there's all of these like, it's slowly coming together. And the plan is that we'll have one documentary that's going to be like the sort of history of Crystal Dynamics. So if you want to see Gex 3DO stuff, like footage of the box and the game and stories about that and all the weird esoteric games, and also stuff like Blood Omen and Legacy of Kain and Tomb Raider and things like that, sort of lightly peppered in there. Did you hear my cat meowing?
We did.
Yeah.
Hero just came over and started whinging at me. What's up, dude? You like Crystal Dynamics?
Crystal Dynamics, yeah.
Oh, we've got a 5th member of the crew today for the podcast.
I think he asked if Nosgoth is in it. Dude, that was who did Nosgoth?
Nobody likes
it was
that.
Psyonix did Nosgoth before Rocket League. Isn't that
really
crazy? Yeah.
Oh, really?
They did that multiplayer.
The Square Enix published one, right?
That sounds right, was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It was like the multiplayer asymmetric, or it was like,
Yeah.
but it was in that world. Yeah, they did that. It's wild. They have a very. Somebody should do a documentary about this studio.
Yeah, they should. You're right.
Dude, would you stop meowing? What are you doing? Okay, you better shut up.
Get him on. Get him a mic.
Apologies to any cat owners who are listening to this. He'll chill out in a second. He's deaf. He's deaf now, so he just like meows if he wants anything because he doesn't know if you're paying attention to him. I don't know why he's not blind, but I don't know. You guys talk among yourselves for a second. I'm gonna
Sure.
help this cat.
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness. How you boys doing?
Good. Doing great.
It's a hot birthday week here at Noclip. Six years, right? 6
Yeah,
years.
6
hell
years.
yeah. We're entering our 7th year. Also, we're watching Danny throw his arms up in frustration as he
Seriously.
tries to reason with his cat.
Trying to get this cat. It's running away. He's off screen now.
I love it. I love it. Also, again, we say this many times, but again, the podcast would not be possible without Jesse. Oh my gosh.
Come on.
Doing audio stuff on the PAX video, I was so nervous because of like all of the convention audio and stuff, and I was just like, I'm not gonna care.
Yeah.
But oh my God, Jesse. So I can't imagine the work you do, processing all the audio stuff, balancing my voice, which must go so high and so I don't know. You're a master.
Stop.
You're a
I'm
master.
sitting right here. I'm a high-pitched, excited guy on here along with you, man. It's constant work. Well, I have 2 tracks. I have a track for Danny and Jeremy where they're just talking straight, and I just put a little compression on, and I have you and me where I'm like,
Yeah.
move this
Oh,
up,
really?
move this down.
Am I not I don't have the dynamic range. I'm more like, that makes me happy, actually.
No,
Sometimes I
you're-
worry
you're-
that I'm like,
You're perfect to work on. You have a perfect voice.
sometimes I
Jeremy.
worry that I'm like screaming
No.
or whispering.
No,
Never.
you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, editing audio and color grading are like 2 of the most unsung parts of any production. It's
Totally.
like you lose all sense of relativity. Like it just you have no idea if something is loud or quiet after a few hours working on it.
Exactly. It's one of those things people don't notice, like until unless it's bad, they notice it. But if it's good, they're just like, yeah, of course it's good. It has to be. Right?
Yeah.
One last note about audio. Does the loudness war exist in podcasting?
Oh, yes,
'Cause I was-
absolutely.
Right? Like what's
Yeah.
what's our like output level on the NoClip podcast? Is it like blast out speakers?
I try to normalize this at -6 dB. But a lot of people I know are like, push it to -3. YouTube video stuff, push it to 0, even if it's a podcast. I'm like, are you crazy?
Damn, dude. I'm going to start a YouTube channel that's called Noclip Podcast Bass Boosted.
Yes.
Uh,
Now
For all
that
the,
Lo-fi-
for all the
lo-fi
hip hop
mix.
heads out there.
NoClip podcast to chill to.
yeah, we need a vaporwave
Yeah,
channel for the
lo-fi.
No Clip podcast. It's just Danny talking with vaporwave music under it.
It's the studying girl from the lo-fi
Yeah.
YouTube channel.
No,
She's
it's you.
playing,
We get a video of you doing that.
It's me. Fair enough.
Welcome back from the cat adventures, Danny.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just put him in front of some sunlight and rubbed his belly for a while, so hopefully he's chill.
That's all they ever need.
Yeah, he's an old dude. He just needs a bit of TLC every now and again. What was I talking about? Crystal? Yeah, exactly. Crystal Dynamics. Yeah. So yeah, I guess to round that whole thing up, where the plan is to do one big Crystal Dynamics doc. It'll probably be a nice, I don't know, hour and a half type thing. Then to do a separate sort of like, this is like all the Tomb Raider stuff they did. We're going to go deep on all the Tomb Raider stuff they have and give you whatever that is. I don't know how long it's going to be. Could be an extra 40 minutes or an hour. And then to do an episode on basically Legacy of Kain as part of Greatest Hits. I will say that is the hardest part of this entire thing, is getting people who worked on Legacy of Kain to talk to us for whatever reason. Just each of them in their own way is busy or hard to reach or doesn't work in game dev anymore, because I mean it also was like 20 something years ago, so there's a lot of barriers there. But because of the timeline of this thing, we're basically going to come out in October with the Crystal Dynamics one, probably try and come with the Tomb Raider one pretty fast behind that. We have a little bit of lead time to make sure we've got the Legacy of Kain episode of Greatest Hits, or it might just be a Legacy of Kain doc at that stage, just separate. We mightn't do it in Greatest Hits, because this morning, for the other episode of Greatest Hits that everyone voted for, if you don't know, Greatest Hits is like our series that we do on NoClip, where we investigate old games, classic games. We try and sort of tell the story of how they were made, but also their relevance today. The patrons voted for Black and White, the classic Lionhead Studios game that came out in, I think it was 2000, I want to say. This morning I had a chat with Peter Molyneux, so we have that one in the bag. Had a lovely conversation with him about that game while he was they clearly this morning had like a very busy day trying to like finalize a build of whatever game they're working on. 22 Cans, I forget the name of it. I had it in my head when we were doing the interview earlier, but I forget the name of it now.
Legacy?
Yes, correct.
Yep.
Legacy. And so he took 30 minutes out of his day, but like there were people he was like in a meeting room where people were like talking to each other. So it was pretty intense. It was cool. But yeah, we're hunting down some more of the folks who worked on that as well, who are around. So we'll have that episode of Greatest Hits coming soon too, and we're going to be using NoClip Crew to talk about those projects more openly before we get up to them and share some of this stuff like we've been doing with the patrons. So exciting times. I'm excited to get the keys tomorrow and jump on in. But let's talk about video games. There's a bunch of games to talk about. It sounds like the one that most of us has played this week is Immortality. Obviously,
Yes.
Jeremy talked about it a lot last week. This is a game that it's a divisive one. So I've seen people on my Twitter feed saying this game is awesome. Kevin Van Ord, ex-GameSpot colleague of ours who works at Larian, was shouting its praises. I've seen people on Twitter who don't like this game at all. I tried to play as much of it this week as possible. Probably didn't play as much as I'd like to. But Frank, it looks like you have played a bunch. Jesse, I know you have as well. It's the only game you have down here, Frank. So tell me about your experience with Immortality this week.
So I was really curious because, we talked about last week with Immortality where it's a game about reviewing footage, and we're all editors here, and it's like, what the fuck do you mean? No. But I found out it was on Game Pass, and I was like, oh my God, I don't even have to think twice. I booted it up. I was immediately sold. I think even before you begin the game, there's almost like a theater lobby card where it's like, tonight you will be exploring the career of this star. Here were the 3 films they were in, and it was like the presentation sold me. The first clip you watch is I'll just say is like Tonight Show clip. It's the first clip. It's a clip of her on the Tonight Show, but it's like filmed in the 60s, and it's made to be like Johnny Carson, and it's so specific. I was like, oh, they know what they're doing. Okay, and then the feature in the game is you can pause footage, zoom in on any like specific visual, whether it's a person's face, a candle, a prop, zoom in, hit this magic transition button, and it will zap you across some other space in the timeline to another film frame and start playing the rest of that reel. And so then I realized like, oh, you're not actually having to construct a physical editing timeline. You're just researching through a mountain of footage. And it does it in the most like insane, radical Twin Peaks way, where it's like I feel like Dr. Manhattan. You're surfing through space and time. And I think combined, like I think I played maybe 3 hours of it. And even last night, I uncovered another layer to the game. Like there's so many layers that it keeps getting bigger and bigger. I'm like, oh my gosh! And now I got to revisit everything to see how like. I'm blown away by it so far.
Nice. It took me a while to figure out exactly what I'm meant to be doing, or rather, like. The thing that I assume I was supposed to be doing that I wasn't actually meant to be doing. Like it is very much just about that exploring thing. And I think, Jeremy, you touched upon this last week and Frank just did there. The thing that I enjoyed the most about it is the sort of just how good the footage is. Like, it's like some of it's clearly shot on film. A lot of it's like very, I don't know, it's not rote. Like there's stuff that's like very much like, this is like your 90s thriller. This is like sort of like your, Italian giallo kind of horror thing going on, and it's funny because I just watched both Suspirias last week, so it was kind of
nice.
fun experiencing that. But it's not. But I also didn't find it felt authentic. It feels like some of it's not the best acting, but it just seems like maybe they didn't have the best actors within the world of the game. It doesn't feel like, I don't know, overly rote or I forget what the word is, but like it's not a rip off or a bad sort of version of it. So I was surprised by that. Like it's compelling footage and some of the like camera movements and stuff. My favorite one was there's one that's a close up of a guy in a cast, and instead of the clackerboard, which they couldn't fit in frame, he uses like a clothes peg.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing. I'd never seen that one before, but I guess
I've never seen that either.
If you're doing macro shots, I guess that's how you get your snap.
They the thing you're saying about like how it feels like it's pastiche, but it's not doing the thing where it's not like doing the Sharknado thing where it's like isn't this like kind of janky and that's funny. It's they clearly put a ton of effort into these these 3 movies that comprise the game, and they feel like I don't know if I would like sit down and watch those movies, but they feel like almost to the tier where they feel like real movies. And I think that's essential to selling kind of the illusion of this game. Like sometimes I forgot that I was playing a game about like fictional movies. Like it genuinely sucks you in, and after a few hours you start to like be so immersed that it feels like these are real actors. And I think that's augmented or like amplified by the fact that, you know, it's like a game about a bunch of actors and then they're acting within the game. So then you're like the layers of kind of like persona that are going on suck you in more because you're like, oh yeah, that's not like Ambrosio, that's the actor who plays Ambrosio. And then after a few hours you're like, oh no, that's not the actor who plays Ambrosio, that's the actor who plays the actor who plays Ambrosio.
Yeah, one of the things that I think sort of pushed me away from her story, or I just for whatever reason I never connected with it, was that there is that sort of the wall you have to break through. And I mean, games are like this all the time, where you really have to let yourself believe in a game, right? Because like it's all clearly not real because of the way we interact with them, and they're all the graphics and everything. That there's a layer of abstraction there that we sort of try and forget about while we're doing it. But for whatever reason, like FMV games, you talk about the most iconic FMV games. A lot of them are pretty hammy. You know, Mad Dog McCree and you know. What was the one? Not Terror. What was the one with the locking the doors in the house? Like Night Trap. Yeah. They're all kind of hammy and silly and the ones that try and do it sincerely often like just don't work at all. They just completely fall apart. And her story for me, and I didn't play enough of her story, and it's also been so long, so I don't want to color. I don't want to be. Don't take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But for whatever reason, it didn't land for me because I just couldn't get past that level of abstract. I couldn't believe in what was going on. But because of what you're saying, because of the fact that this is meant, it's film footage, so it's meant, so the believability of it is almost built into the format, right? Means that, I don't know, it just kind of works for me. And also maybe the acting is just really good too, because all of the like behind the scenes bits and bobs, a lot of it seems very sincere, especially the main character, the lady who plays the main actress is
Manon Gage, I think is her name.
Super good. Like all the interactions between her and the people off camera are super good. And she just has she probably more than any of them has a very like Hollywood visage. Like she looks like a movie star and she acts like it, and she draws your gaze in a way that like movie stars do. It's probably difficult to find somebody like that too. Jesse, what do you make of this?
I mean, I agree with everything you guys have been saying this entire time. You really nailed it, I think. I 100% of the game. It was the one thing that I played for like 2 or 3 days. I got every clip. I was obsessed with what was going on. It's so hard to talk about it because everything I'm interested in talking about, you cannot talk about on a podcast without ruining it for people. But I will say, last week when Jeremy brought this up, he kind of explained the gameplay mechanic and how the match cut system is really cool, and how like that is an interesting mechanic to see in a game like this. Like Her Story and Telling Lies were both kind of games where you were doing deductive work almost and trying to search through a library of footage, where this is you're trying to connect different shots. And I thought something that was really cool is this could have landed in a position where you scan a coffee mug and then you always get a coffee mug, or you scan a piano and you always get, but there's a lot of like thematic cuts that you get too. It's not always just like, okay, you clicked on, you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but you click on, you mentioned the clapperboard, they use a clothespin instead. Right. You click on that and you get a different clapperboard instead of getting another like, so there's kind of stuff like that. I just was shocked at the things that they did in this game, and the fact that they got away with them, and the fact that they're on Xbox Game Pass is really funny to me. It's really good.
I feel like I have to play. I think we are heading in the trajectory of spoiler cast with this one. So we'll probably do a bonus episode on the podcast feed, and people can take it or leave it. Maybe
I think we should, because this is totally not spoilery what I'm about to say. This is just a general statement about a piece of art.
The waiter did it.
But the waiter did it with the candlestick in the parlor. I think that one of the greatest strengths of this game is the thing that, like, when I watch a really good classic movie, oftentimes something will happen, whether it's like the climax of the film or just like a moment that happens, and it is open to interpretation.
Right.
And I think that a lot of bigger budget, like Hollywood blockbuster movies, and potentially games as well, but I'm specifically talking about movies here, are like afraid to give the audience uncertainty, because I think that sometimes I'll watch like a movie that's like a little out there with friends who aren't into like weird movies, and they'll be like, I don't understand, is that like this or that? And it's like, well, what do you think it is? And I think part of the strength of Immortality is that its love of cinema shines through in the way that it leaves things for you to put the pieces together, and it trusts the audience to like. There's no quest log, you know. It trusts the audience to just like construct a narrative in their head of what they think is going on, and I think that like. Yeah, I don't know. I've been watching a bunch of classic movies lately, and it gives me a very similar feeling where I have to like I enjoy the movie like 80% of my enjoyment or 90% of my enjoyment is watching the movie, and then the other 10-20% is sitting afterwards and being like, "Fuck, what?" Like that moment right there. I wonder what the significance of like what was the character thinking? What were they feeling? And this game like really it trusts itself and it trusts its audience, and that it makes it like an all timer for me.
It's the type of game I wish there was a Red Letter Media breakdown of afterwards or something, because I feel like when you're watching a movie and you're like, I wonder if RLM did this one. Like they had done both Suspirias actually, so I enjoyed watching those. But yeah, there you go, Immortality. Probably the last time we talk about it, maybe on this podcast, maybe I'll talk about it next week. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled. Let us know if you're interested in the spoiler cast for that one. Can I talk about Metal Hellsinger?
Please do.
Singer.
Please.
I almost called it Slinger again.
Hellsinger.
Christ.
You've got Hellsigner here in the doc.
Do I really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm just dyslexic for hell singing, I guess. Metal Hellsinger. This is the game from the Outsiders. This is the game that they eventually came out with. They had a bunch of projects cancelled over the past couple of years. It looks like, and this is the game that came out of perhaps the ashes of some of those. It is a rhythm shooter game. We did what was the game we did? It was sort of like this that came out a few years
Beats
ago.
per minute?
Yes, BPM. We had the devs for BPM on this
minute?
podcast.
Sorry.
But yeah, probably open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Right? A number of years ago, and there are definitely some similarities with that, but this is sort of like a full-throated, much broader sort of version of a type of game like that. Very much like a Doom Eternal in terms of like movement and action and freneticism and you know the graphical fidelity and all those types of things. Some terrific music in here, just you know songs from folks like Serge Tankian from System of a Down and a bunch of other rock and metal folks who. Some of whom I know and some of who I don't. So I've been playing it for about a week. I think the reviews came out a couple of days ago, and it looks like it's getting fairly favorable reviews. And the thing that's come up in the reviews is sort of the thing that I'm coming up against too, which is that I just wish there was a little bit more of it. It's a lot of fun. The shooting's great. The action's great. It has that sort of rub your belly and tap your head sort of feel to it, like a rhythm game, like a, you know, playing Rock Band for the first time on drums and having to like do the pedal and the beat at the same time. And it kind of trusts the player. It keeps layering in a lot of stuff. So by the end, you're sort of like swapping between multiple different weapons, which are primarily useful against different types of enemies. There are things within the world, like sort of like these crystals that explode, other ones that give you health. If you do like, it's kind of like Doom Eternal again. I don't want to be saying it's like this and like that, but it has the glory kill thing of like, if you kill somebody with a glory kill, you get health sort of thing in this game. And you can do that by softening them up and then hitting the E button at a certain time, and it does a sort of like a final kill. I guess the other thing, there's like big boss fights in it, which are, you know, it has that sort of like, what do we call it in the Doom doc? It was like combat chess is very much the way it works. The reloading system, there's an active reload thing that you can also do, risk reward of like reloading at a certain time. And it's just tight. Like I can see the way in which this game could have been like way more difficult to play or like set up controls for, but it just all kind of works. Like it has that feeling of a game where there's a lot of work that went on to make this work that I'm not seeing, but it works. Like the reloading timer thing is very easy to see. It's like a different color on your UI. The way they do the beat is like this sort of like it's like enough, but not too much of a hint. So you can kind of see it in your peripheral, how you're supposed to do it. And it's basically a speedrunning game. Playing the levels is fun, but it's definitely been set up for you to replay the levels, try them on harder difficulties, try them with different like sort of attributes set on the levels. I forget how many levels are on total. It feels like it's like a dozen or so, maybe like that, or maybe maybe more. I shouldn't say that, but it's not like an incredibly long game, like sort of 5 hours maybe to get through it all, 4 or 5 hours. It's being sold on Steam. I think it's $40. I think it's coming out day of this podcast going up. I think September 15th. So I know it's tomorrow actually, so it'll be out already. I think I saw that somewhere.
It's also on Game Pass, right? Launching on there.
Is it?
Yeah,
Well,
I wait.
yeah,
Whenever
yeah.
I say that, I wait for the Frank Howley nod. Phil Spencer sitting behind him.
he did
Yes,
it.
it is Frank.
It will release on Game Pass. See, this is why it's seriously the best. I
Yeah.
love Xbox.
So,
good.
so I think so. It's like I hate to like just go talk about it. It's a good problem to have that I want to play more of it. It very much is a game about like I think we expect this from games like I don't know Trackmania or things like that. Games where you're going to be repeating the levels over and over again. But this game is very much like wants you to do that and sort of sets you up and gives you unlocks to sort of allow you to do that. And I the last thing I would say, which I think is important to mention as well, is I think if you're not into rock or metal music, that this doesn't, I feel like it doesn't get in the way of it. Like, I know plenty of people who like the Doom soundtrack by Mick Gordon, but wouldn't consider themselves like rock or metal listeners. And while there are like lyrics in this game, and there's a great sort of thematic reason as well why voice is used at certain times, I love that music, but I didn't find it very overbearing, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like it's beating you over the head with it or anything like that. Yeah. Do
Okay,
you guys have any
cool.
questions about it? I rambled there for a little bit. I've been dying to talk about it since last week. So
Anytime there's something similar to this, I'm always curious. Like, how's the gore? Can you like rip out spines, or is it pretty tame?
Jesus.
I would say it's. I wouldn't say it's tame. It's very like thick on like devil and like evil sort of looking. But because of the pace of the game, you kind of wouldn't want to linger on all that stuff too much. I like the enemy design, like the sort of the random grunts you kill are kind of like these like pathetic little like kind of harpy looking things, like fallen angels or something. But some of the bigger ones you get are pretty interesting, and they like in the sort of like Left 4 Dead guys, they do a great job of like, oh, this is the one that like will jump in a straight line forward but can cover distance, and this is the one that's going to shoot like left to right, and this one has a shield, so you have to like figure out a way of getting behind them. And it like the what is it, the mosaic, or not mosaic, the what do you call it, the shadow of something, or the
silhouette.
outline of something, the silhouette of something, yeah, exactly. It does a good job of like silhouetting those. So I wouldn't say it's like very gory, but it layers on the sort of hellishness pretty thick.
Are there boss battles like extended? Like, yeah, how do those play? Like,
Yeah, they're good. They're again, there's a kind of a good one of the things that would annoy me a lot is if you died and you had to go back to the start a lot. And this is where the speedrunning kind of thing comes in, where you don't have unlimited lives. You have, I think it's always 2, maybe in the harder difficulties they don't give you any, I'm not sure. But it takes a chunk out of your points. So every time you die, you lose a bunch of the points, which means if you care about the sort of like point scoring aspect, speedrunning kind of type of aspect of it, it affects that, but also the unlocks that you might have gotten otherwise. So if you like really want to nail this one, you can go and restart the level, or if just like me, you want to keep going, it goes from the point you died. So like the health of the boss has been taken down to wherever it was. It doesn't reset the boss fight or anything. So that's cool too, yeah. And they're interesting, and they're thematically like, yeah, they mess around. They do the bigger, more difficult version of what the enemies in that level had been doing up till that point. I should say I've not finished it yet. I've been replaying a bunch of levels, but so maybe there's a crazy one at the end I haven't played, but yeah, it has them in there, and they're sort of part of the level structure of unlocking new areas of hell.
Is the music, I'm not sure if you addressed this, is the music like original music for this game, or are they like songs that people would know?
No.
Oh, so it's all original music.
It's all original. I'm pretty sure
wow.
it's all, maybe from what I know and from how it sounds, it's all original music, but done from like actual rock artists that people would know. You might not know
That's
all
really
of them. Yeah, and the music's good. Like it's for original music for a game, it's pretty good. Matt Heffy, is it Heffy or Heafy? I can never know his name. The singer guy from Trivium. He has a song in it. There's Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. One of the guys from Soilwork. Arch Enemy. And I mentioned Serge Tankian, of course, from System of a Down. Sings on one of the songs. That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
You hear him singing. Yeah, so a nice mix as well of men and women on the cast as well. Tatiana Schmeiluk from Ginger on there too. So there's a...
If I was making a game like this and commissioning a bunch of artists to make music for it, I would like hide like 2/3 through the game, like the lyrics to the song would be telling you like secrets in the level or something. Like, if you look behind the third door on the left, so then it's like... It'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah, I like it. Metal Hellsinger, available where games are. Apparently, I've been playing on PC and enjoying it on mouse and keyboard, but according to Jesse, it is also on the Game Pass. So, yeah, go check it out today. Jesse, so Resident Evil. I saw this written down and I was like, oh, great. Jeremy finally played Resident Evil 7. My dream has come true. But I'm excited to hear what you've been playing. You've been diving into some survival horror.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the biggest fans of Resident Evil on planet Earth on this podcast. You guys are so big into it. Frank and Danny, you two are always talking about it. You're always talking up Village and how you like the older ones. And I realized I haven't played through very many survival horror games, period. Jeremy, you were playing Silent Hill, 2 months ago now?
Something like that.
Something like that.
And I also, I fucking love the old Resident Evil games. I was
perfect.
obsessed with them, and I RP'd on a role-playing forum for Resident Evil in high school.
Oh,
so
no, wow. Okay. So
you're talking to the right guy.
Yeah, the right guys. Plural.
Jill Sandwich 69 was his name, I think.
Oh, it's just Joseph with a bunch of O's at the start. Yeah, no. I played the first Resident Evil. I'm playing through all of them, inspired by the Frank Howley Project Xbox. I'm playing through all of the Resident Evil games from launch to now. I've only played Resident Evil Remake, 4, 5, 7. That's it.
That's a fucking roller
weird
coaster
jump,
of experience.
right? Yeah. So I don't know anything about, or I didn't know anything about the original Resident Evil games up until 4. And wow, these games are really good. What the hell?
Yeah.
1 remake and 1 are pretty close. But I started 2 last night. Oh my, what a good game. Holy
2 is amazing. Are you playing the original 2 or are you playing the remake?
Original 2 on PS1.
Okay, I like the original 2 1,000 times better than the remake. I know the remake is very popular, but I think the original is the superior version.
The remake
nice.
of 2 is very different from 2, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like a reimagining of sorts, but I much prefer the original.
It doesn't have the, by the time I realized something was wrong, the entire time was infested with zombies.
Is that Kendo or Kenzo, whatever his name is, the guy at the start? Yeah. Yeah, that was great. I played through it with a couple buddies of mine who were like big Resident Evil heads, so they were kind of being my Wikipedia if I needed any help on Resi 1. Nice. They were like, you should probably save a bunch. One of them was Irish, so I was like, it's like I'm on the podcast still. It's great. But yeah, no, it was so much fun. Resident Evil 1 is like the most campy, ridiculous thing. I played the director's cut, not the DualShock version, the original one, but it has like the black and white cutscenes and like all the voice acting and Joseph. Yeah. No, don't go.
Man, that's really good. That was really good.
I had to play that opening
that was
cutscene a
good.
couple times.
It has the I remember the director's cut, the part that everyone was like, yo, you know when the first zombie turns around and does the like over the shoulder shot, then you see a head roll, and you didn't see that in the original. They were like, yeah, they put in a head roll, hardcore, man.
So badass. But yeah, no, I'm planning to play all of them. I'm started 2 now. I'm going to play 3 probably next week when I'm done 2. I've been flying through 2. It's interesting how quickly I've kind of picked up the tank controls and like how different the design of earlier Resident Evil games is. One thing I thought was funny that I want to mention about Resi 1, there's that bit in the kitchen when you're trying to go down to the basement and a zombie it's like kind of a fake out where a zombie cutscene plays and it opens the door and it comes out. And the guy I was playing with, who's a huge, like he's played Resident Evil 1 like 100,000 times. He was like, the speedrunners have names for the zombies in Resident Evil 1. So they name all of them. And the one that comes into the kitchen is Gordon Ramsay.
Oh my God.
That's great.
Which is just,
really
I
funny.
thought that was really funny. I thought that was really cute. I don't know. I'm surprised how much I'm enjoying these very early Resident Evil games. Can you believe it? The Resident Evil series is good. Why didn't anyone tell me?
Yeah, what was the game? Was it Nightmare of Decay? Was that what it was called?
Yeah, that's when we played earlier in the year. Yeah.
Had you played that too, right?
Yeah, I played Resident Evil 1 remake, like I said. So I have some experience with that design,
Okay.
but visually I didn't have any like frame of reference or references literally from the original Resident Evil. So that was cool to finally see what they were going for. I also played early in the year Save Room. And it's like a inventory puzzle game. It's Resident Evil 4 inventory Tetris, but like that's the whole game.
Funny.
It's like $3. It's in your new collection of good $3 games on Steam, Danny. You'll enjoy it.
I had that idea for a game recently. I didn't know it already existed.
You should still make it. We can have 2 of those.
My idea was like you're the inventory, and so it's like a passive game where you're watching like an
great.
AI driven player do a survival horror game, and you're like rapidly trying to organize the inventory so they don't run out of ammo.
Oh, that's great.
That's brilliant. I like it. I think that there's a bunch of that in Gloomwood as well. A bunch of that like, oh, it's a square thing, but I don't have a square, or like it's I wish I could move this shotgun left to right, up to down so I could fit it wedge it in here or whatever. Jeremy, what were you going to say before I cut you off?
I was just going to say that one of my favorite things about old survival horror games, and the reason that they resonate so much with me, is I think that their atmosphere is so like strengthened by how cinematic they are. Like I really like the like semi-fixed camera thing. I think that there are numerous indie devs who are kind of like venturing back into the PS1 era survival horror tropes and stuff, and I think that's like. I think that's a gold mine. And I say that as someone who, you know, I fucking love movies. Like, what can I say? So, like, when I'm playing the original Silent Hill and there's that shot in the first, like, 5-10 minutes where you walk down the alleyway and the camera pulls back as you walk towards it, and then as you turn the corner, it, like, cranes up into the sky and almost turns upside down. It's like... The feeling that gives me is it's more powerful than almost any scene in almost any like over the shoulder survival horror game. And I say that as someone who also really likes those type of more like actiony survival horror games. Like Resident Evil 4 like changed my life. It also changed the entire genre of survival horror games. But yeah, no, that's cool that you're working through those games. They're so good. They're classics for a reason.
With camera stuff, like in my head, it's like every time in Resident Evil 2, when you're in the sewers, you open a door and it's just a shot of Leon, the door, and like a pool of water, and you hear something sloshing at you, and it's like, and my instinct is always you turn around and leave the room. But it's like they do those games where you enter the establishing shot is the player, and you don't see what monsters in the room you're with, and it's like until you run forward, and then it pulls to a wide shot, and it's like every Resident Evil game does that, and it's evil and genius.
It's so good.
Dude, Silent Hill does that so much. There's so many times you walk into like a classroom when you first enter the school in Silent Hill 1, all you can see is Silent Hill. You have like a little flashlight hanging off of you, and through the heavy PS1 dithering, you'll be like, all right, I wonder what's through this door, and you go in, and the shot is the camera is like 30 feet away from you, super down low, and it's like you just see yourself in the distance, and it's like I know something fucked up is gonna happen, and I don't want to walk towards the camera. Like it feels like the camera is it's like doing that same Raimi thing where the camera feels like it's the POV of a monster that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah, totally. There's it's like the shuffle in Resident Evil. You just hear that like and you're like, fucking where are you?
Yeah.
Shooting at nothing. You're like, when are they gonna grunt? Grunt already.
There's a lot. I love that. There's a lot of that motivated camera work in both Suspiria movies too, where it looks like a normal camera movement until it does something and you're like, oh no, this is a perspective thing. Like it swaps and it's like so jarring when it does it. Man, Resident Evil. I'm trying to think is there any other games that exist in that realm outside of Resident Evil and Silent Hill that should be added to the list of like
that was going to be my question. If you guys had any survival horror things I should play,
like Fatal Frame.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out because 4's coming back. So
yeah, Fatal Frame 2 is amazing. It's really really good.
I'm a big fan
Dino
of
Crisis is
yes, I don't no good chat. Dino Crisis.
Dino Crisis is really good. It doesn't hold up quite as well as Silent Hill or Resident Evil, but it's still worth playing. It's a lot of fun. I actually played it for the first time very recently.
Nice.
Capcom?
I think so.
Yes, it was basically another kind of like Resi spin-off, wasn't it?
Oh,
cool. I remember, yeah. It's tank controls and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a PS2 era horror game called Haunting Ground, which I think is on Resident Evil 4's engine. It is like one
of that Suda?
No. So Haunting Ground it's still I think Capcom's team.
Okay.
But the premise of Haunting Ground is you're like a girl who's like driving along a forest. Her car totals, and you wake up inside a cage, and you have to escape a castle full of like monsters. And there's no combat. You're just running and doing hide and seek. But it is nonstop terror. It's so intense. Haunting Ground. I think it came like 2006. It is insane. I really, really like Haunting Ground.
So any of you play Parasite Eve?
Oh yeah,
it's on my list. That's the next game I want to play probably.
Yeah.
I always
Parasite Eve is really good.
I have kind of an obscure reference. If you did you want to say something about Parasite Eve first?
No, I really don't. I know nothing about it.
There is a shower scene in Parasite Eve 2 that's very famous.
Oh, there you go. Even more famous
Well,
now.
now I'm doubly interested.
Safe search
There's another game that I have not played more than the first few minutes of. But I've kind of been like saving it for a rainy day. Jesse, this might be up your alley. Actually,
yeah?
It's kind of a synthesis of two things you love. It's called Kudelka.
Oh, Kudelki. Yeah, I've heard stories
you
about
know
this one.
Kudelka?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's made by I always want to say Nosgoth, but it's not. It's Sacknoth Studios, founded
Excuse
by
me, Sacknoth? Bless you.
Sacknoth.
Gesundheit.
Founded by Hiroki Kukuta, who was the composer. He's a composer and game designer, but he did the music for like Secret of Mana.
Okay.
Like a super talented composer. Founded this studio, which it is Sacknoth. And they made a game called Kudelka. It is a late 1800s survival horror game that takes place in Wales. That's like, it's all kind of like.
Is it
like
voiced
heavy
by Welsh people? You can understand the whole game, eh? So sorry to all the
Yeah.
Welsh listeners out there. Sorry.
Foreign language game. And it's like, it's a survival horror game, but it's a tactics RPG. And it's like, it's all like dark, evil Christian themes. I think the mage in your party is like a priest or something.
Some Celtic nonsense going on there.
Yeah,
about
it
that?
seems fucking cool. I haven't played it, but it's on my list.
Nice.
Kudelka.
I got to check that out because that's part of the Shadow Hearts series. That's the only reason I know about
Yeah,
it.
it's like it's the predecessor of them. Yeah.
Man.
Cool.
The only other ones I can think of that come to mind, they're kind of a little bit older, though. You sort of get into your fears, First Encounter Assault Recon or the Condemned series, I guess,
Oh,
is pretty
man.
old now. Like that came
I
out in
guess so, yeah.
2005. So that was quite a while ago. Yeah, I don't know though. That's sort of like the classic 3D, sort of Japanese, right? Is the other part of that too.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a
is-
big
is
part of it. Clock
part of
Tower?
Clock
I've heard those
Tower.
are good.
Oh, I never touched those. Clock
Oh.
Tower 3 is directed by the same guy who did Battle Royale, the film.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
if you just see
right.
the
Yeah.
cutscenes, but I'm like, I have to check that out.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That's what. And then the last one I would say, which I think I mentioned last week with Gloomwood, was Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. That is kind of the closest, I think, in a first-person veil to those classic Resi games.
Chuck those on the list.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, exactly. You'll be playing those till Kingdom Come. Jeremy, you have Unsighted down here, which came out. I thought it was last year. Has it just come out of early access, or are you just getting around to it, or what's the story?
I actually am not. Okay, so released September 30th last year.
Okay.
So pretty recently. I'm not sure if that's probably the full release date, I would say, not the early access. I just got around to it. I had heard of it before, but my friend Brian, who he lives in Boston, he's like one of my best friends in the world. We occasionally co-op games together. And so this was our last co-op game. So we've been working our way through it. And it's by Studio Pixel Punk. I wanted to say Pixel Punk Studio. I'm glad I did not. Studio Pixel Punk. They're a Brazilian independent game developer. This game is really, really cool. It is kind of, I would describe it as a like rough around. It's absolutely brilliant. It is a little rough around the edges at points, but it is kind of like a action RPG somewhere between a Souls-like and a Hyperlight Drifter inspired game. It is, you kind of have your you have a sidearm, like a pistol or a grenade launcher or whatever, and you have a melee weapon like a sword or an axe or something. And yeah, it's really interesting. It's got a few things going for it that I think make it really unique. The combat system is like incredibly tight and incredibly polished. The weird thing about that is that I feel like the hardest fights in it are almost too short to really get a sense of the combat system. And what I mean by that is I feel like when you go into a boss fight, you either get your ass kicked so fast or you beat them in like 30 seconds. And it wasn't until the very last boss in the entire game, which was a huge difficulty spike, that I realized how brilliant this game was. And so I almost wish that every boss fight was as hard as the last boss fight, because we kind of blew through the game and then got to the very end and we're like, holy shit, this is so hard, and did it a million times. And it like the combat system blossomed because you were forced to truly understand every step of the dance on the final boss. It like made me realize the depth of the combat system and like how precise it is and how responsive it is. And Yeah, so that also may be a product of it my playthrough being co-op. I think if you were playing this alone, I think you might have a more focused experience. When you're playing co-op, there's a lot happening on the screen, and so I think that might have confounded my ability to like really master the systems. So I don't know. It's fun co-op, but it might be a different, a more polished experience solo. But one of the most interesting things about Unsighted is so the story of the world is essentially that it's kind of Terminator, but the opposite. The robots were created by the humans to do like manual labor, and then there was like a robot uprising, a war between the humans and the robots. But the robots are the good guys in this game.
Okay.
And so when the war happened, this force that keeps the robots going, the anima, they were cut off from the source of their power. And if they run out of anima, they turn into Unsighted, which are like monsters. It's kind of like the zombie
wild.
robots.
That's cool.
So it's got like a time limit, like a real time limit.
It has a hard time limit,
Whoa.
and there is an in-game like narrative economy where you get this. I think it's called meteor dust. It's like dust, and you have to give it to characters of your choosing. You also need to take it yourself to stay alive. If your timer goes all the way down, you're soft locked and you lose the fucking game.
Oh.
If you let any of the characters die, they go unsighted. And so at some point, you get far enough into the game that like there are characters who aren't vendors. They don't do anything for you. And you have to ask if you want to keep them alive for purely like moral reasons.
Wow.
So there's like an old lady in the village who's not a vendor and doesn't do anything. And we kept her alive for so long. And then towards the end of the game, we're like, I don't know, man. Can we really afford to keep grandma
Let grandma
alive?
die, all right?
Yeah, she's like 100 anyway. But legitimately, like when we let her go, I felt horrible
That's
about it.
so smart.
It's really cool.
What a smart little system. I never thought about that.
And it doesn't like it. I feel like it is. It's fantastic in theory. It doesn't always land, kind of, but there's like I think the fact that it made me feel something is the fact it shows that it's like a successful design choice. You know what I mean? Like the fact that a character who didn't provide any sort of material benefit to me, I was going out of like we were going all over hunting for dust to keep grandma alive.
Because you're like, if grandma
And then
dies, it's my fault.
yeah, no, totally. Like her blood is on our hands, dude. Like it's but then like, you know, we got to keep the upgrade vendor alive. Like that's clearly more important.
Right.
And then, you know, it obviously the noose tightens towards the end of the game because there's a finite amount of that resource within the game. So I thought it was brilliant. You can play the game without that mechanic, which I think if you don't consider yourself someone who likes a real challenge, it might be like a more
You're
fun,
not a
casual
real
way.
gamer.
If you're not a real gamer like me, you might enjoy that.
boy.
If you're just a tourist in the world of games. No, I'm just kidding. But it is like the feeling that you can be soft locked at any moment because you're not sure exactly which characters are essential to the plot.
Wow.
Is like it added some legitimate like stakes to everything, you know? Because like we had long drawn out conversations about like which vendors to keep alive, and then you find a new vendor and you're like, oh well, now that guy can die because like we don't need him anymore. And so it alternatively turns you into like a philanthropist or a monster depending on like where the chips fall. So it's really brilliant. I think people should check it out. It's I don't know exactly how much it costs. I'll check.
It's on Xbox Game Pass right now, too. Yeah,
Wow,
new
it's
free
not
too.
I'm downloading it right now on Game Pass.
I fucking saw you turn. I knew it.
So, I know. Hey,
Like
because like
stole his thunder. You can,
my-
you can see his eyes turn green.
my what is it? My Steam Deck pre-order, I like claimed it, so I don't know when the hell it's going to be shipped. But I was looking at
cool.
this like, oh, this would be a perfect game for Steam Deck. But then I was like, oh, it's on Game Pass. But this looks really cool. I'm always sold on games with pixel art. The Steam reviews are glowing. The fact that it looks like Hyperlight, like this is rad. This game looks sick.
Dude, it's really good. I think it's kind of like an underrated gem. And like I said, like I think there were moments where I was like, I think if like 100 more people play tested this game and gave them feedback, there were a few moments I felt like could have been more streamlined. Like there was a couple moments where we felt like we were banging our heads against a wall just because of like level design flow. But I would say like 90% of this game is incredible. It's got like Souls-like vibes. The dungeons are kind of Zelda-y. The Hyperlight Drifter influence is clear. It's like it's one of the better games I played this year for sure. It's really cool.
There you go. Unsighted. Available where video games are. Same as everything else, apparently. Last game I think that's here is my list is Moonbreaker, which is, I guess it's out officially on the 29th of September. I was in a sort of an early playtest a thing that they had available on Steam.
Lucky.
So this is it's a turn-based strategy. It's like a tabletop game. It's made by the Subnautica people. Yeah. So Unknown Worlds are making this, but it's like it's not a first-person game. It's not a crafting game. This is a different team to Subnautica apparently. And it's basically just like a tabletop 1v1 game with like hero classes, and it's turn-based, and it's like a very futuristic version of chess or something. I almost entirely played against AI. I believe there was online available as part of the test, but I'm a scrub. And it's basically like, the battles are set in a sort of the closest connection I can think to is something like a StarCraft, right? Where it's a sort of a futuristic, spacey type thing. But the board is the board. It's small. You can almost see all of it on the screen at any one time. And it's mostly like sort of XCOM style battles, I guess, against each other, turn-based. But the powers that you have and the sort of affect of the game is very much tabletop. Like you have units they talk, but they're like, they look like figurines you have picked up, and you move them. Like they have a base plate and they get moved around the board. But it's that type of thing of like, you have to, sort of like Into the Breach or something, where you have to take out the enemy before they take you. You can see their health bars and all that sort of stuff. You have different, I don't know what they call them, but like characters or heroes or whatever they are who do different things. Like the most basic one is like you have one character who's able to like do a swipe with a sword, and it affects like people in a radius around them. And then you have another person who is able to pull baddies towards you. But you could also have them venture out further because they're able to walk further and pull your ally character towards the bad guys. So it's like there's like clearly a lot of like complexity here, and it seems super esports sort of focused. Like I'm trying to think of another game that does it this way. Like it seems like a smart idea. Like I've not really played a game like this. It's not turn-based strategy like StarCraft big, but it's also not like sort of smaller. I'm trying to think its smallness kind of seems to work. Like imagine turn-based Dota or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of it has the vibe of something like that. Yeah, and you can even like they have a section where you can paint your characters. That's cool. You can go in and maybe you have to unlock some stuff, but you can go in and paint them in a little area. So they're clearly leaning into that. It's interesting. I would say it's not my type of game I would normally play, so I'm probably not the best person to talk about it, but it is coming out in early access in 2 weeks' time, and I enjoyed what I played of it. I don't have the sort of the chops to get into the complexity of a game like this. It's just not what I usually play, but I could see people who are into this stuff really, really relishing it. So Moonbreaker coming out early access in a couple of weeks' time. Check it out. Don't know if it's on Game Pass. I guess I'm assuming
I'm
not.
sure Frank will.
We'll get Frank to call up Phil.
Yeah.
His eyes flashed orange, so I think that means no. Or
That means he's low on battery.
It does. Plug Frank back in. Cool. I think that's all the games we played in the week that was in it.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not even true. I'm playing a game, guys. I wish I could talk about it.
What?
Oh my God, I wish I could talk about it. Is it out next week? Let me just type in its name into the internet and see if it is coming out next week. It is coming
You
out.
got Dishonored 3 already?
Wow, lucky guy.
It's coming out
so
next
cool.
week. So you can.
Now we got to
you can
guess what it is.
You can play it then. It's coming out next Tuesday. I can't say anything about it, but I'll be talking your ear off about it next week, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm sorry to leave it there, I guess.
Wow.
Let me get through some of what's going on the channel, actually, because there's quite a lot here. So we have a bunch of new docs up. Obviously, Rogue Legacy 2 came out a couple of weeks ago. Go check that out. Our first episode of our show about Stunt Derby, the game that we're making with Alex Austin. That has finally gone up, that first episode. Go check it out. It's on Noclip Crew. I'm currently editing episode 2, where I talked to Derek Liu, the video game trailer editor. all about editing trailers. I'm also going to be talking to an indie dev who specializes in helping indies create good Steam early access pages. So the second episode is going to be about a trailer, how to set up your trailer and how to set up early access. Or maybe we'll split them into two if there's too much meat on that bone. But yeah, it's hopefully a resource for other devs when they're doing this stuff, is to check out this series. The Hades Blu-ray, I believe there should be an announcement up from Supergiant by the time you listen to this, but we are putting out a 2-disc Blu-ray of our Hades series. It'll be available somewhere. I can't be sure that the announcement's out yet, so I can't say, but it is a third-party company that sells stuff is going to be selling it. Supergiant are being incredibly generous as you can be with how much revenue Noclip will get from this. So if you have ever wanted to support Noclip but you don't like Patreon or monthly recurring things or whatever that is, this is a really great way of helping us out and also getting the only physical media in a documentary we've ever made and likely will make for quite a while. This is probably a one and done for us, or not, maybe not one and done, but like we can't produce our stuff on Blu-rays generally because of the way we make them with fair use, and we don't have rights to commercially sell gameplay for these things. But obviously with Hades, it was a special case. It's a director's cut version of it, so we pulled back on some stuff. We added in other stuff just to make it a bit more special. So yeah, that'll be coming out this fall, I believe is what we're saying at the moment. The Crystal Dynamics trailer is up, of course. Frank's PAX video, which we talked about at the top of the show as well. And yeah, plenty of other bits and bobs getting done over here. Black and White and all the... And maybe the game that I'll get to talk about next week. Maybe we're also planning a doc on that. And I'm very fucking excited about it. Maybe that's the case. You'll have to wait and see. Yeah, was there anything else, lads, before we wrap up this week? Anything else you're playing or watched or any good bits? Suspiria is a good movie, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, you've been talking about it a lot.
Watched, in the last week, I've probably watched 10, like, there was a movement of British filmmaking and like playwriting called kitchen sink realism. It's like shifting from movies that were about like glamorous people and important people to just making movies about like, this guy's like a coal miner and his wife hates him. The common man. Yeah, exactly. And so I've been watching a bunch of Ken Loach and Mike Leigh movies.
Awesome.
And they're so good, dude. Mike Leigh is like maybe my new favorite filmmaker. Highly recommend people just like like I mentioned, I can't remember if we were recording or not, but I mentioned the Criterion Closet. Yeah, it was at the beginning of this podcast. I mentioned the Criterion Closet. Go like find someone that you like, whether it's an actor or director or writer on the Criterion Closet, and see what weird, obscure movies they recommend, and then just like go check them out, even if you've never heard of them. I've just been really enjoying just like going to a movie that I know is a classic. I know it's a classic for a reason, and going in knowing nothing about it, and yeah, it's been very enjoyable. I've been reconnecting with my love of cinema.
That's terrific. Ken Loach is very much beloved by Irish people. He directed The Wind That Shakes the Barley, which is probably the most accurate depiction of sort of life under British rule in rural Ireland. It's quite a as much of Irish historical movies are, it's quite sad and also quite anger-inducing. But that's a special one, and that was also, I think, Cillian Murphy's first like proper role as well, which is pretty cool.
Oh wow, yeah, that's the funny thing is the Ken Loach and Mike Leigh both have like a
prolific as well. Sorry,
well, not only so prolific, but yeah, so Mike Leigh has like 20 something. Ken Loach has like probably 30 something, like a huge body of work. But also a lot of their movies have actors in them who end up being like stars later. So I was watching Meantime by Mike Leigh, and it's Gary Oldman's first movie.
Wow.
He just discovered Gary Oldman. He plays like a skinhead punk in the UK, and it's got Tim Roth is in it.
Whoa.
Jim Broadbent is in a bunch of these movies.
Really?
Yeah. He's fan-fucking-tastic. I just watched Topsy Turvy by Mike Leigh. It's about Gilbert and Sullivan, and he plays W.S. Gilbert, and he's like the leading man. I can't believe that Jim Broadbent wasn't like as big as like Clooney or Brad Pitt or something. People might know him as he's Ziedler in Moulin Rouge. He's kind of the impresario of the Moulin Rouge. But holy fuck, he's like absolutely incredible. He's really good in Life is Sweet as well by Mike Leigh. But yeah, Topsy Turvy. If you like period pieces or musicals or just like weird movies, go watch Topsy Turvy.
Yeah, Broadbent's one of these actors who like was very famous in the UK for a long period of time, and then sort of, I think the Harry Potter movies maybe he was in or something like that, where he got sort of a bit more of a international feel. Who was the lady? It was a lady, I forget her name now. There's an English lady who won the Oscar a couple of years ago for that The Favourite, I think it was. I forget her name.
Olivia Colman?
Yeah, Olivia Colman. She was in everything in English cinema and English television for years, and then she suddenly became super famous.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of like ones where like I even forget that they're not famous over here. You know, same with bands. You know, like U2 or not U2, sorry, Blur and Oasis would be like really big, but there's a whole like, you know, other Britpop stuff that just never made it over here for whatever reason.
Yeah,
so.
it's like Mike Leigh movies are like movies made in 1982 with like half of the cast of the Harry Potter movies. It's so fucking fun. Like David Thewlis, who plays Lupin, is in Naked, which is one of Mike Leigh's best movies. Again, like Immortality, huge fucking red content warning if you were sensitive to anything. Naked is one of the hardest movies I've ever watched, but yeah, I don't know. It's all good movies. Check them out.
Nice. All right. Add it to the pile.
I wanted to also just quickly plug Zach Kreger of The Whitest Kids You Know made the best horror movie of the year. Barbarian is in theaters, and it is so wild.
Yeah?
Like, just go see it. See if you can see it with the crowd. There's it is like, oh my God. Like, I was laughing during it, and like, it's so dark and funny. And yeah, I just go see Barbarian. See Barbarian.
Okay.
And I've talked about it a bunch already, but I watched the Suspiria remake and then went back and rewatched the Dario Argento original. The remake could not be obviously more different to the original in terms of like filming style and even story, although to say Argento's original had a story is even generous probably. And you're watching that movie just for the shots, like and how beautifully lit everything is and all that sort of stuff. But even if you have no interest in watching like one of those old Italian horror movies, the remake is fucking brilliant. I absolutely loved it. It's long. It's almost, I think it's 2.5 hours long, but boy, oh boy, is it a real good horror movie. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to say anything about it. So if you're looking for a good
I've never seen
movie,
the remake, so I'll probably watch that this week.
it's totally different. Like oh God. Yeah. If you do watch it, let's talk about it. Cause I was really surprised by it. I was one night I had 2 hours until bed and I was bored and I was like, I've been meaning to watch the Suspiria remake forever and I'll just give it a go. Let's check out some weird dance studio nonsense and see where this goes. And yeah, it's really artfully done. All right. Will we leave it there, crew?
Yeah.
That's
it. Thanks for checking in this week, folks. Next week's episode might be that interview. Sorry, I didn't even mention that actually. It might be a developer interview. That was all fair.
Way to just drop that, eh?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it might be a developer interview. Let's just say that. We'll do another podcast at the end of the month. It'll be a Patreon-only podcast. We're going to do a regular-ass podcast on the Patreon-only feed this month because people have been asking for that as well. They've been enjoying the movies, but also like, hey, you don't have to do it every time. Just have a regular one. So we're going to do that. So another good excuse this is a 5 Friday month. So we figured it's a good month to do one of those two. So yeah, if you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/Noclip. Follow us on the Twitter and stuff at Noclip Video. I also did set up the TikTok finally. So there's nothing on it right now, but there hopefully will be by the time you listen to this. I'm working on an edit. At Danny O'Dwyer, at Frank Howley, at Garasha, at Jeremy B. Jayne. Make sure you're subscribed to Noclip Crew at youtube.com/Noclip Crew Video. And yeah, send in your podcasts. Or send in your podcasts? Send in your
Send them in.
emails.
Yeah, why not? Questions, comments, podcasts. Send them in.
Send a singing telegram, like
Ooh,
Morse
yeah. Send us
code.
audio files. Send us a question as an audio file. That'd be funny.
Send us a bicycle messenger.
Please, yeah.
Yes, we have a new postal address
There you go.
in Nevada. So go to noclip.video/contact, I believe is the thing. If the amount of times I put in my email address into things as noclip.video, TikTok wouldn't let me sign up. They were like noclip.video. Put in a real email address. It came up. I was like,
Really?
Fuck you.
I wonder how many like 10-year-old kids trying to sign up for a TikTok and it's like
Ass at pussy dot shaft.
Butts at boobs.com.
It's my favorite cat
Sure.
shaft.
Okay.
That's
Bad pause. You should not have paused after you said favorite cat.
Sorry,
for that.
Hero. Hero was meowing again. I'm not sure if you noticed. I had to pet him for like 10 minutes here just to.
He's a fan of the podcast.
Yeah, it's like TRL where there's like kids in the background holding up like NSYNC signs. Heroes the number one
Signs
Noclip
outside
band.
the window.
Yeah.
It's just Hero with "Rub me, human."
Yeah, give me food.
There you go. There's another podcast title for you. All right, we're done this week. Thanks so much for hanging out. And we'll see you next week on the Noclip Podcast. Goodbye.
Goodbye.